Alright everyone, the legacy media has finally come to the acceptance stage and decided to use that moniker for itself. Well, kind of. Link in the description, archived of course, a piece by the Financial Times talking about Twitter specifically. Twitter, now known as X, by some people. I still call it Twitter because I'm old school. Twitter.com still is the main domain, so yeah, I mean, until you change that, to me it's Twitter. Elon Musk has been using the term legacy media, which again, let me talk about the history of that. I did not invent that term, nor ever claimed to have done so. I simply started using it habitually to a large enough audience that it helped popularize it. I heard it first from Greg Hunter of USA Watchdog, and I think he probably got it from the original 1998 article that was talking about the legacy media as old school news, so print and TV mainly, and how early on, you've got people in their garage setting up .coms and getting millions of people to look at them, and the legacy media, by and large, didn't really get in on that until very late. It was almost the social media era before they invested significant resources in even having a web presence of any type, beyond a Drudge-style site. So a lot of text, not a whole lot else. They didn't really focus on it much. They'd have a couple of people working on the website. Mainly it still took place in the corporate boardroom and in the newsroom with TVs and stuff. And computers were mainly used to collate material for TV broadcasts and digitize it for newsprint and stuff like that. And the legacy media as a term has become wildly successful, I think, as a linguistic kill shot against the legacy media, which really is about the only proper moniker for it. Media forms that are simply outdated by companies that use a very old school model to function. The biggest losers, though, aren't even core legacy media. And this article brags about, well, we've got so much more experience in journalism and stuff. The idea that so-called experts on X or any other website can provide people news is ludicrous. I would like to point out that a significant proportion at this point of local news that makes it national or at least regional, it comes from private third parties. The journo, all they did was contact someone and maybe they offered the money for a clip or something like that they shot on their iPhone. Or they're talking about some content creator, some podcast that ruffled people's feathers. That's a pretty good proportion of all the news, especially the tech news. Okay, the tech news. The legacy media wants to pretend, well, we write the stories about that. And then the people on Twitter mainly are just analyzing our stories. Okay, well, you didn't actually do the tech thing. You're reporting on some sort of third-party activity that you have nothing to do with. This is the case with the news, except when there's push news, tabloid, yellow journalism sort of stuff. The real swill, the muckraking, and when you rake the muck, you get a little bit on your fingers. I would note that journalists don't even dare to touch most news stories now domestically. You have to get foreign news media in order to get accurate reporting, like on what the U.S. government is doing, because all the U.S. firms have circled wagons for Joe Biden. They don't want to talk about how he just fell down again the other day. They don't want to talk about how the inflation numbers that are being put out by the legacy media are literally coming from the White House and make no sense and aren't even real. They don't want to talk about these things. You have to get that analysis through Twitter and places like that. The community notes that I complained about the other day. The system is still wonky. Redeemable, but wonky. I mean, they kicked me off of community notes for literally no reason. Nonetheless, if you look at the only real-time fact-checking of the Biden administration currently happening, it's happening on Twitter as the result of community notes. I'll give him credit for that one. Every time Kamala Harris talks about gun crime as the leading cause of death of children in the United States, which is a bald-faced lie, it gets automatically fact-checked at this point, and the fact-checking actually goes up in a timely fashion now. When you get inflation statistics, when you get jobs reports and stuff, why do you think that the legacy media is so pissed off at Elon Musk? Trying to take him down a peg. Well, who does he think he is? We're the ones that report the news. I loved it. There were several lines in this that were just so far off the chain that I'm going to read them verbatim. Of course, they put the juicy, hilarious stuff they put near the end. Independent journalists have to be hustlers, selling and promoting their content in a way that those of us who have the privilege of being employed by media institutions are protected from. Oh, really? Your boss in the corporate boardroom doesn't expect you to get clickbait going? Yeah, that sounds likely. And they have to play to a crowd just as much as anyone else. True. Being a contrarian can be valuable, but it can also become a knee-jerk position taken to satisfy an audience rather than being the result of a careful analysis of the matter at hand. Motherfucker, what's MSNBC been doing for the last 1,000 years? They do the same goddamn thing, except that they do it more poorly, less interestingly, in a format that forces them to self-censor. I can say fuck on Twitter. MSNBC journo generally can't get away with doing stuff like that. So yes, sure, the legacy media has all sorts of problems, serious ones, and we can always do better. Well, then you should start trying. You haven't so far. But the idea that experts who pay for influence on social media are a better source of news than journalists and media institutions with decades of experience is a fallacy. No, it's not, actually. I can attest to that looking through both legacy media reports that I have no choice but to analyze, partially for my living, generally pointing out how they're wrong, and all sorts of independent content that I can see online. As sadly is the notion that you can spend more than about 4 minutes on Blue Sky at this stage without getting so bored you have to surreptitiously slink back to X. That's the other part. Everyone who keeps trying to take Twitter, or similar sites by the way, down a peg, they end up going back to use them. The legacy media don't openly broadcast this fact, but they've got accounts on Rumble and BitChute and places like that as well where they lurk in order to find shit to write about, mainly from a negative perspective. Oh my god, this person that we've branded as hateful and extreme is still on this platform. Clearly we should talk to PepsiCo for investing with them or having an ad campaign on this platform. That's what the legacy media does. It's funny though, the reason why I'm talking about this is because they're actually using the terminology that's been popularized to describe them. They've embraced the term legacy media. Putting it in quotes, of course. Well, we're not really legacy media. Yeah, if you look at the average TV news channel, its audience is dwindling over time. If you look at newsprint, who the hell uses that for anything other than they read the comics, which they can get for free online and they're just stubborn fucking boomers, or they shred it up and they've got a couple of parrots. You know, might as well buy the betting. They're supporting the legacy media while letting the parrot shit all over the tabloid press. Fairly fitting, symbolically, I would say, a good metaphor for the legacy media. We are only good to capture bird shit. You know, I got a bunch of parakeets, and I feed them laxatives. It's a big problem. And my house is, off-white for a reason. The legacy media is the legacy media. You have a legacy of having, in the past, been relevant. You're no longer really particularly relevant. The missing link media is dwindling now as well. They've taken an even bigger hit. They took the typical corporate construct, or they adopted it after being freelance for a while, and didn't even have the advantage of a massive parent company. Look at what's happening with like Salon, HuffPo, Vox, the missing link media. What about Drudge? Matt Drudge made the original missing link media site, did well for a very long time. He sold it and decided to fuck off, and nobody knows what the fuck he's doing now, but it's turned into nothing more than a left-wing tabloid rag at this point, with the occasional neocon article sprinkled therein. I'm assuming that the user base there is not exactly growing. Really sad how far the mighty have fallen, by the way. That was one of the greats from the 2000s. Legacy media is simply outdated. It doesn't have a usefulness. Citizen journalism is doing better than corporate journalism because the corporations have all been bought off by what they're supposed to investigate. Other corporations, oil firms, pharma, etc., politicians and political groups, religious groups, etc. They all buy in either directly or through third parties and partners into these corporate news firms. And so naturally, when I have $50 million invested in my media company by a corporation, and some whistleblower comes forth and says, hey, the CEO of our corporation is a crook, here's a 10-page dossier that I collected with internal emails showing that he's raping his employees, you say, well, that sounds interesting and important, but I can't independently verify it, so I need to dig a little bit deeper. Might take me 5 or 6 years. This is what they did with the Hunter Biden laptop. You remember that one? Yeah, the corporate media is so beholden to truth and really does a great job in its journalism. That's about all. Peace out.